Oregon, 7 electoral votes in Oregon. Nader a big factor out there as well, and Bush is leading. And so it's these decisive 3. By the way, this is the first call, the first decision in a presidential race since in more than 2 hours. In other words, when Iowa fell for Al Gore, that's the first call we've had since midnight. It's been more than 2 hours since we've had a call. Let's review it again, because I know this could get confusing for you, get confusing, and particularly this late in the morning, not everybody talks as straight as they might. So it's Gore, 249, Bush, 246, 270 needed to win. The important states now are Florida with 25, Wisconsin with 11, and Oregon with 7. Let's punch up this Florida race on our map here, go to the presidential race in Florida, and show you what it looks like. 49% to 49%. Ooh, man, 30,000 votes approximately separate these two. Check my arithmetic, Bob. You know how I am with this. 25 electoral votes. It's been closing down in the last few hours. Bush has had a lead rather steadily, but his lead is dwindling. However, note, because it's important to note, that there are overseas absentee ballots, which probably will not be completed in their count, at least until sometime tomorrow daytime and possibly the day after. The Florida officials think by the turn of the next hour, that may be 3 o'clock in the east, by the next top of the hour, that they will have, they believe, all the votes that can be counted in Florida counted. Let's put up that Florida actual vote count board again, because we now have 96% of the precincts reporting in the fight for Florida's 25 electoral votes. This has been a strange, unusual, weird, even goofy night in Florida. Early on, it was called for Gore, but just about everybody. Then there was word, some suspicious data going into computers. We pulled it back, and later some others pulled it back, and eventually everybody pulled it back, put it undecided. Bush took a lead in actual votes counted. He still leads in actual votes counted, but is it close? Is it ever close? And Bradley, Ed Bradley, update on Oregon you have?
No, it's just narrowing in Oregon. A few minutes ago, Governor Bush was up by 35,000. With 59% of the vote counted, that lead has narrowed to 26,000. And we're getting some information from our affiliate in Portland, KOIN-TV, that about trying to find out where that vote is, what vote is in and what vote is not. And they're saying that the tally we're seeing now reflects more of the rural areas where the voting was completed, and those are the numbers we're seeing, that they're still waiting on some of the urban areas. And in that state, those urban areas tend to be Democratic. I mean, if you take a look at Oregon, the last time that a Republican won there was Ronald Reagan in 1984. Even Michael Dukakis won in Oregon.
Well, Ed, this much we now know. Double check me on this, Bob Schieffer. It's now down to a one-card cut.
Whoever wins Florida.
He who wins Florida wins.
That's it.
That's it. Ball game. When we know who wins Florida, then we can say that's a wrap.
Even if someone wins Oregon and Wisconsin, they can't win the election.
Not enough. So that's where we are. Let's go over it, folks. The arithmetic of this gets more complicated by the moment. We may have to bring somebody expert in algebra in here if it gets any more complicated. But you have 3 states, Florida with 25, Wisconsin with 11, Oregon with 7. The electoral count right now, Gore 249, Bush 246. It takes 270 to win. So if Gore or Bush were to win Oregon and Wisconsin, they'd still be short. So it's down to Florida.
And I can tell you in Florida that among the votes that aren't counted are Volusia County, which is in the Daytona Beach area. They have not been reported. Traditionally, they're one of the last counties to come in. And that's an area that has 260,000 registered voters. Many of them are black, and most of them are Democrat. Also, the absentee ballots that you're talking about from overseas, they were supposed to be postmarked today, but they may not be here for another 10 days.
Don't tell me this, Ed. Don't tell me this.
Do we know
how long can you last?
Well, well, I'll tell you, when it comes to reporting a race like this, I'm a long-distance runner and an all-day hunter, and I'll be here because this is just too good to miss. Now, let's get the picture. We're joking a lot up here because, like everybody else in the country, really cares about politics. You got to like this, no matter who you're for, what a historic race. Now, in Florida, it's now down to Florida. The candidate who wins Florida gets it. It's one number takes it all, and that's Florida's 25. If either guy wins only Florida and wins Florida, he is the next president of the United States. Now, it may get down to these absentee ballots from overseas. How many of them are there? We don't know, because as Ed Bradley reports, we believe that the rules were that the absentee ballots from overseas for Florida had to be postmarked today. Now, if some of them come by ship or kayak or something, they may not be here for a long while. Now, they're still counting votes in Florida, votes actually cast today, including some absentee votes. In Florida, Bush 49.1, Gore 48.6, with, we believe, something on the order of 250 or 60,000 votes actually to be counted. Ralph Nader, 1.7% of the votes so far in Florida. But that 1.7%, 92,000 votes have gone to Nader. If either one of the other two candidates had just gotten 70% of those votes, they'd probably win the state. So here's another state where Nader is making a decisive difference one way or the other. You could argue that. Pat Buchanan with 16,000 votes getting only 0.3, 3/10 of a percent of vote in Florida. Even his 16,000 votes, those would be very handy votes for, say, George Bush to have. Not to say that all of them would have gone to George Bush, but no doubt a lot of them would. This gives you an idea how close it is. Ed, never anything like this in our history.
Nothing that I've seen. And those 30,000 votes that we keep talking about in Florida,
absentee ballots
the absentee ballots from overseas, it's not a hard and fast number that there are 30,000 absentee ballots that are going to come in. There were 30,000 absentee ballots requested. Now, conceivable somebody gets a ballot and doesn't send it in. I mean, people have good intentions. Some people have the intention of going to vote and they don't. The same thing holds with people who are going to cast an absentee ballot. They requested one, but I'm willing to bet you that not everybody sent them in.
Folks, make no mistake. Either one of the two candidates can still win this race. It's 249 electoral votes for, college votes for Al Gore, 246 with Bush. It takes 270 to win. Florida's 25, Wisconsin's 11, and Oregon's 7 are still out there. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. Things can happen suddenly. They can happen at any moment. Stay right in here with us, won't you? Florida goes Bush. The presidency is Bush. That's it. CBS News estimates when all the votes are in and counted that George Bush will have won the presidency of the United States. Let's pause for a second. Let that sink in. Bush wins. If our CBS News estimates are correct up and down the line tonight, and we believe they are, George Bush, George W. Bush, son of President George Bush, revenge is his and revenge is sweet, as in Austin they begin celebrating. One of the closest elections in American history. Bush has won it. The sun also rises. This is outside the Capitol in Austin. And our CBS News estimate is that when all the votes from all over the country, including absentee ballots, are in and counted, that George Bush will have won the presidency and will succeed Bill Clinton. The Republicans are very likely to retain control of the United States House of Representatives. They have a very good chance of retaining control of the Senate, in that it may be a 50-50 tie in the Senate, and that would mean that the newly elected Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney, would cast the deciding vote in any tie votes. Ed Bradley. It isn't over till it's over, but it's over, and Bush wins it.
He did, and he ran a very consistent race. If indeed he has won, he ran a race in which he stayed the same, I think, from beginning to end. The one thing that stands out for me in this campaign was watching the debates. And some people said that you saw the same person with Governor Bush in the debates. I think his running mate said that Bush beat 3 different guys in Al Gore, because you saw a different Al Gore in each of those debates. Bush, I think, might have been better prepared in one debate than another. But he was his own man, he was comfortable in his own skin, and that personality, his way, never changed from debate to debate. I think it didn't change throughout the campaign, even when he was hit hard. When he was hit with this